안녕하세요. I was going to teach you a different usage of the particle 에서 and 으로로 in this lesson, but I've changed my mind. I guess you need to learn other sentence patterns and the related grammars first. Let's go! We're going to learn one of the two most important predicates in Korean. You've already learned the other one, which is 있다. The predicate you are going to learn in this lesson is 이다. 있다 and 이다. They are different. Learners mix up these two predicates quite often because they look similar and sound somewhat similar. Not for me, but anyway, they are completely different from each other. 있다 basically means to exist, and it is used to express something like there is, someone is at a location, something is located somewhere, or I have something. But this predicate 이다 that we are going to learn on this page is used to say something or someone is something. Again, the predicate 이다 is basically used to define something as you say something or someone is something. You don't have to know this, but grammatically, 이다 is a particle. So I call this a predicate particle. Because this is a predicate particle, a noun usually comes right before it. There are exceptions, but you don't need to know. And you don't put a space between a noun and the predicate 이다. Let's see how it conjugates with the present simple and the past tense endings. It conjugates slightly differently. Let's learn the present simple tense form first. The stem of the predicate particle 이다 is of course 이. You might want to add the ending 어요 to put it in the present simple tense. Then it will be 이어요, 이어요. But unfortunately, this 이어요 is not used in modern Korean anymore. What is used? Where there is a final consonant in the formal block, 이에요, 이에요 is used. Where there is no final consonant in the formal block, 예요, 예요 is used. 예요 is actually a contracted form of 이에요, which means they are basically the same, but this is grammar, so you need to follow the rule. Because 이다 is a predicate particle, it has two forms, depending on the existence of a final consonant in the formal block, just like some of the particles you've learned. The past tense form is slightly easy to remember because the original form is still used. But there are still two forms depending on the existence of a final consonant in the formal block. The stem 이 plus the past tense ending 었어요, 이었어요. 이었어요 is used where there is a final consonant in the formal block, and the contracted form 였어요 is used where there is no final consonant in the formal block. Let's see some examples together. I am a student. It's gonna be more like I, student, am. I, 저는, or 제가. Student. Student is 학생 in Korean, and you add 이에요 right after because the 생 sound has a final consonant. 저는 학생이에요. There's no space between 학생 and 이에요. Of course, you can say 제가 학생이에요, depending on the context. What I want to emphasize here is that you shouldn't think 이에요, 예요 is the translation of the English be verb is, are, or am. 이에요, 예요 is used when you define something as you say something or someone is something. Okay? There will be a better way to understand this predicate, and you should see many other examples. Next example. I'm a company worker. You guys don't really say this in English, but this is a very common answer to a question like, what do you do in Korean? If you work for a certain company, you can always use this a company worker, 회사원, in Korean. So, 저는 회사원이에요. I am a company worker. So you can see that You use this predicate when you introduce yourself with a one noun. I'm a doctor, I'm a teacher, etc. And a noun comes right before the predicate, 이에요, 예요. So needless to say, you can use this predicate 이에요, 예요 when you introduce yourself with your name. Next example, I am Amy. I, Amy, am. 저는 Amy예요. 저는 Amy예요. Amy is an English name, but you can transcribe it using the Korean alphabet, and it looks like this. Amy. And the last me sound doesn't have a final consonant, so you need to use 예요 instead of 이에요. 저는 Amy예요. You might be able to transcribe your name using the Korean alphabet wherever you're from, but as you know, we don't have F, Z, or TH sound in Korean. You can also say, my name is Amy. Name in Korean is 이름. So, 제 이름은 Amy예요. My name is Amy. Okay? Next example. I am Korean. Maybe we're gonna talk about this later again, but we don't say I am from Korea. We rather say I am Korean or I came from Korea using a verb. Let's just say I am Korean for now. Unfortunately, we don't have a word like Korean in Korean. So we say country name plus person. Korea is 한국 as a country, as you know. And you add 사람 after, which means a person or a human. 한국 사람, Korean. 저는 한국 사람이에요. Next example. I am American. We have a Korean name for the United States of America. It's 미국. 미국. In fact, 미국 is from Chinese language. We tend to have a Korean or a Chinese character-based name for a country that Korea has had a relatively longer relationship with. For example, we don't use a Chinese character-based name for countries like the Netherlands or Russia anymore. But we have a special name for the countries like Japan, China, Thailand, Germany, the UK, mainly England, and the USA. So American is 미국 사람. The country plus 사람. 저는 미국 사람이에요. I am American. Next example. My car is blue. The word blue here is an adjective in English because you need to use a noun before the predicate 이에요, 예요. It should be more like my car blue color is. Not just blue as an adjective, but blue color as a noun. My car, 제 차는 blue color, 파란색, and 이에요 right after. 제 차는 파란색이에요. My car, blue color, is. 색 means color. You can see that you can use this predicate particle 이다 when you describe your eye color or hair color too. Next example. I was a prosecutor before. Now I am a lawyer. I was a prosecutor before in the past. So you're going to use 이었어요 or 였어요. But now I am a lawyer in the present time. So you're going to use 이에요, 예요. A prosecutor in Korean is 검사, 검사. A lawyer in Korean is 변호사, 변호사. I was a prosecutor before. It's going to be more like I, before prosecutor was. I, 저는, before, the noun 전, which indicates the time in the past, and the time particle 에, 전에. Prosecutor was, 검사였어요. 저는 전에 검사였어요. I, before, prosecutor, was. 저는 전에 검사였어요. I was a prosecutor before. Now, I am a lawyer. Let's see the Korean sentence right away. 지금은 변호사예요. Where is 저는? Of course, you can say 저는 again, but it's omitted here because the listener or the audience already know that you are talking about yourself. 지금은, 지금 means now, as you know. You don't add a time particle 에 to 지금, as you know. But the topic particle 은 is added, even though this is not a subject. Why? Because it can provide a nuance of comparing. What are you comparing here? Yes, before and now. So you can add the auxiliary particle 은 here to 지금. 지금은 now compared to before. 지금은, can you feel what providing a nuance of comparing means? 지금은 변호사예요. Now a lawyer is. As you see, 은는 would become what you want it to be in the sentence. If you want to use it to indicate the topic, it will indicate the topic. If you want to provide a nuance of comparing, it will provide a nuance of comparing, which means indicating the topic, changing the topic, and provide a nuance of comparing are all basically the same things. The interesting thing is you can even add this auxiliary particle 는 to before, 전에, to, 전에는. Yes, because the particle 는 is an auxiliary particle which provides a certain nuance or a meaning. You can use it with a different particle 에. 는 here is optional, but if you use it, you can make the sentence sound clearer and richer. 저는 전에는 검사였어요. But 지금은 변호사예요. Okay? Now let's learn about Korean pronouns such as he, she, they, this, that, etc. You can basically think that Koreans never really use the actual pronouns in spoken Korean. I'll tell you what I mean by that very shortly. What you need to learn is the concept of the determiner. 이, 저, and 그. In English, there are only two determiners, this and that. But we have three determiners in Korean. 이, 저, and 그. You don't need to know the term, but they are something called determiners, used to indicate something or someone. They are usually not used alone, but are used with a noun. 이 plus noun, 저 plus noun, and 그 plus noun. Okay? The determiner 이 is used to indicate something or someone that is within touching distance. So it is basically English this. The determiner 저 is used to indicate something or someone that you can still see but cannot touch. So it is basically English that. The determiner 그 is a bit unique. You cannot find exactly the same thing in English. 그 has two different usages. First, 그 can be used to indicate something or someone the listener already knows what or who it is. So it's very similar to English it or the plus noun. Second, 그 can also be used to indicate something or someone that is closer to the listener than to you. There's no such a thing in English. That's why many learners are pretty confused, and that's exactly why you need to have a good understanding of all these determiners. Now, let's learn how to actually use these. When you use this or that to indicate a thing rather than a person, you use this dependent noun, 것. 것 basically means a thing. It's a dependent noun, which means you don't use this noun alone, independently. Where this is used to mean this thing, you can use 이것 in Korean. 이것 literally means this thing. In spoken Korean, you can get rid of the final 시옷 consonant and just say 이거, 이거. Where you want to express that to indicate a thing over there that you can still see but cannot touch, then you can use 저것, that thing over there. The colloquial form in spoken Korean is 저거. Last but not least, 그것. The colloquial form is 그거, without the final 시옷 consonant. 그것 is used to indicate something you and the listener both already know what it is, something you've already mentioned earlier, or something which is closer to the listener than to you. 이것, 저것, 그것. Or, in spoken Korean, 이거, 저거, 그거. Of course, you can make plural forms too. In English, there are many irregular plural forms, but there are not in Korean. You can just add the 들 sound to any noun to make it plural, as you add s to a noun in English. So these things, 이것들. When you make it plural, you cannot use the colloquial form 이거. It has to be the original form 이것 plus 들, 이것들. Those things that you can still see but cannot touch, 저것들. Those things that the listener already knows what they are, or those things which are close to the listener than to you, 그것들. Okay? 이것들, 저것들, 그것들. It is a super simple rule, so I will not teach you this again. Just one thing you should know about the Korean plurals is you don't really use it unless you absolutely need to clearly express that there are more than just one. Okay? Otherwise, you don't really need to use plurals in Korean, especially when you indicate something as a group. Now, let's learn how to say he or she in Korean. When do you use the pronoun he or she in English? Yes, when the listener knows who you're referring to. Then in Korean, needless to say, you use the 그 sound. So the direct translation of the English pronoun he is 그 in Korean. And that of the English pronoun she is 그녀 in Korean. However, these two pronouns are not used in spoken Korean, unless you want to sound funny by making it sound literary. These two pronouns, 그 and 그녀, are usually used in novels, poems, or newspaper articles. In spoken Korean, that man is used instead of he, and that woman is used instead of she. That man, 그 남자. That woman, 그 여자. You know why the determiner 그 is used, right? Because the listener already knows who you're talking about. 남자 means a man, male, and 여자 means a woman, female. If you want to use something gender neutral, you can use that person, 그 사람. How about the pronoun they? We have a direct translation of they in Korean as well, which is 그들. But this one is not used in spoken Korean either. Same reason. Instead, you can use those people, 그 사람들. Now you know why I said we didn't really use the actual pronouns in Korean, right? When you indicate something or someone in touching distance, you use 이 sound. This woman, 이 여자. This man, 이 남자. This person, 이 사람. These people, 이 사람들. When you indicate something or someone you can still see but cannot touch, that woman, 저 여자. That man, 저 남자. That person, 저 사람. Those people, 저 사람들. When you indicate something or someone that the listener already knows what or who you are referring to, or that is closer to the listener than to you, you use 그 sound. That woman, basically she, 그 여자. That man, basically he, 그 남자. That person, 그 사람. Those people that the listener knows or closer to the listener, 그 사람들. Even the pronoun here and there are affected by this concept of 이, 저, and 그 in Korean. Here is 여기. Over there, you can still see the place, not in a touching distance though. 저기. There, the place where the listener already knows, or the place or spot closer to the listener. 거기. 여기, 저기, 거기. 여기, 저기, 거기 are pronouns in Korean and cannot be an adverb. If you want to use them as an adverb, you need a particle. You know that, right? I haven't decided what I'm going to teach in the next lesson, but it will be about different sentence patterns and particles anyway. So I'll see you in the next lesson. 안녕히 계세요.